Part 2 of this fundamentals training series, looking into a bit more detail into our fundamental training techniques. So today we're looking at our elbows, knees, and stamp kick. So beginning with our elbows, in our fundamentals training we look at the vertical line elbows, which is coming up and down, and our horizontal line elbows coming in and out. So we're covering, like a cross, we're covering these planes. And just for reference, the elbows, and the same as the knees in Wing Chun, and the stamp kicks really, are all for, in general, close in. Sometimes you can use stamp kicks at a slightly longer range, maybe you want to keep your range, but in general they're actually a close range strike. So if you imagine, we've already covered our eye strikes, vertical punch, and palms, then if anyone gets past that point, pretty much is a good reference. If anyone gets past your wrists, then you want to start incorporating in your elbows and knees. So they're really for that closer in range when you're up close to someone, and they're really powerful, devastating weapon that you can incorporate off your futsals, off hammer fists into an elbow, and use them in different manners. So this first elbow that we're going to look at, our first elbow drill that we learn, coming up and down, this first vertical elbow coming up, you can use it at close range if you're in close to someone. You can also use it as a guard, so you can use it as a cover. If someone throws a strike in, you can cover and move in, or you can also use it to stop someone headbutting or punching, striking you. So even in this basic motion, there's many different applications of it, but quite simply, I'll show you quickly. Our first drill that we're going to do is our elbows, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we have that close range elbow vertical coming up into this range, driving in, up. Our second vertical elbow is coming down. This is actually a backwards elbow. So if anyone's behind us, or grabs you from behind and you have space, you react quick enough, you can use that to the solar plexus. Our third elbow coming in, so our horizontal elbow coming in, can be used if someone grabs your arm, you can elbow straight out, or you can use it as just a strike coming across to the jaw or to the head. And our final one coming out covers the whole of the frontal plane. So if we cut our body half in two, we're covering this whole plane here, all the way out. So if anyone attacks you from the side, you can elbow quickly from this position. As with all these elbows, we don't want to rely on just our arm force. There's not going to be much power in that. We want to use our center to drive the elbow. So it's a small motion, but you think about your center, it beginning at your center and then coming out to the elbow instead of just trying to use your arm to generate the power. Then that way you'll have your body weight behind it, and also there'll be a lot of explosive power coming from your center, just driving straight out. So think about that when we're doing all of the elbows, because that's for all of them. So let's open up our stance and give it a go with a warm-up set. And I'll talk you through a bit more of the details. So this first one, the first vertical coming upwards, when we come up, just give it a go with me nice and loose. We want to make sure our hands open, our right hand's open, the elbows tucked in, it's not open up, out, and we keep our shoulder nice and loose. Then if we go to our second elbow, number 2, it's just drawing down, 2. We then close to a fist. And then 3, we're going to come across, horizontal, inwards. And for this one, we want to fold our hand in. So we keep it loose and we fold it inwards. So if we go 3, and then our final fourth one, it's going to come out, we're going to close our fist again. 4, and we close to a fist. Let's change sides, another warm-up set. 1, get position. 2, 3, and folded in, 4, closing the hand again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last time on the right side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's do it one more time on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And also, when we're changing, I forgot to mention, when we change to the other side, this is still an elbow coming, the final elbow is still an elbow going backwards. So if we went for 1, it becomes more apparent now when we put energy in. But this elbow here is still an elbow drawing backwards. So when you change sides, don't elbow with power here and then just bring that back. But that's an elbow as well. So it's together. Bam. Let's add some more power in now. Let's say 50 to 70%. So let's start off with our right again, but make sure when we do that change, we put power retracting coming back as well. So 1, 2, use your center, 3, 4. So now we're going to change. So retract this right arm as a backwards elbow with energy. 1, 2, 3, 4. With energy again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember as well, like we said earlier, when you want to use your center, when you bring it forward, keep your body relaxed, stable in your feet, in your connection to the ground, weight dropped, but keep your body relaxed so you can use that in the elbow. So let's break it down this last set, keep it at that power, but really think about engaging our center and driving the motion from there. 1, when we do the elbow back, sink, boom, like this. 2, so it's your whole body weight going into it. Coming forward again from the center. 3, and then body going out. 4. Let's do one more set on this side, thinking about that still. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring your hand back, left foot to right, and push down. So this is our fundamental elbow that we learned at the beginning, just covering the vertical and horizontal. And you can incorporate these into any of your drills, grappling drills, chi sao, coming over. You can incorporate anything into your sparring, combining it with your punches. But another thing you can actually do to get more of a feel for it, and loosen off your shoulders, because you need to keep your shoulders loose if you want to be able to generate power in the elbow. Otherwise, if you're really stiff, you'll find it difficult to do like we talked about before, just keeping everything super loose and relaxed and using our center. You'll find it difficult if your shoulders are really stiff to generate power at that short range and be explosive with it. So something simple that you can do is just shoulder circles. But instead of taking your arm and moving it, which is really using my muscles, you want to totally relax and throw the arm and feel the weight of it drop. So now the arm is the momentum of the weight of the arm taking it around. And you can do it forward, back, even though that's simple, you can do this. And it'll start giving you an idea after of how to use that, the weight of your arm and your center, to drive that motion, the circling, whether it be coming round this way or this way, into an elbow, like this. All comes from this motion here, bam. And that's with all the elbows. So this is like a larger version of doing it. And a good way to warm up, loosen off this, so you can start throwing your elbows, boom, boom, nice and loose. And again, once you're comfortable with that, then we start doing all four to one count. But at the beginning, it's best to get your positioning, as always, first in your fundamental training. Let's move on to our knees and stump kicks, which are closely related in Wing Chun. And the best thing to think of your knees is the same as your elbows. They're the same joint, they're a hinge joint, and they work the same way. So shoulders and hip joints are rotator joints, and they have the same range of motion. So good to think of them as the same. And then think of your hinge joints in your elbows and knees as the same. And the same with your wrist and ankle. They're the same joint and they have the same range of motion as well. So they're very similar in that aspect. For the knees now, we want to keep a nice loose hip and the rest of our leg loose as well to generate power, but we're going to practice them from our arrow walk stance. So I'll show you from the side first. So just look in, because like I said, the knee and the stump kick are very similar in the way we train it first, and that's with balance and stability. So in Wing Chun, we're always looking for maintaining the best balance and stability when we're striking, like in all arts, but we don't tend to lean. So when we're kicking, we don't tend to lean, whether that's a stump kick, a round kick, or anything like this. That's because if you're close into someone and you start leaning, if they push you, you can lose your balance really easy. So we try and still maintain our head to sky, always. And that goes for our knees and our stump kicks too. So from our arrow walk stance, make sure as always you've dropped your base, toe to heel. We're not tightrope walking and we're not super wide. We've got toe to heels and feet turned on the diagonal so you can protect your center if you need to quickly and for the stability. So check your arrow walk stance always before you start kneeing or kicking, because it's important for your balance and stability, as well as when we start practicing our footwork after. So we're going to bring our basic guard forward, and we're going to do a knee off the front leg, here, and a knee off our rear leg, here. And when we practice both of them, fundamentally, in the fundamentals, first thing we do is balance. That means we pause like this. So when we practice it, we're going to go 1, toe pointed down so your foot's not up. And then we're going to place it down slowly and bring it down. So we're not kneeing and then just dropping and losing our balance. We're making sure we have control over the whole motion. And the same with the rear leg. So when we knee with the rear leg, the same as with our stump kicks, we open our front foot to open up our hip. So we're not kneeing across our hip when it's closed. For when we strike with the rear leg, we need to open up the hip to knee through. So this would be the same. We open as we bring the knee up, toe pointed down. We try and maintain our head to sky, and then we're going to go 2, put it down, and bring your weight back down planted. And the same thing with our knees and stump kicks. We don't come up onto the ball of our foot on either of them. We keep our foot down so that we've got maximum connection with the ground when we're striking. And remember, if we're close in and we lift up on one leg, we don't want to be on the ball of our foot in Wing Chun, because if someone grabs you and pulls you, it's easier to take your balance. So we try and keep that maximum stability. So after, when we're stump kicking, if we hit something and the force is coming back in, we can take it to the floor instead of being on the ball and getting potentially knocked backwards, because our kicks are a bit different. We're stamping through, we're not flicking them or using them in this manner. So we're not going on the ball of the foot, we're keeping our foot flat when we do it. So we've got a hard structure behind us. So when you stamp down on something, your whole weight's going into it, as well as a good connection to the ground. So for the knees and the stamp kicks, it's the same with the stability, with turning the front leg to open the hip for the rear leg when we do the rear one. And also we're keeping our feet flat on the floor. The only difference is when you do the stamp kick, which we'll do after, we're not going to point the toe down because we're not going to bring it out again to stamp kick. When we do the stamp kick, we bring the foot up and we place the heel towards the target. I'll go over that when we do that, which is after. So let's open up our stance. Talking about things before we got there. And let's bring our left arm, left leg forward. I'll turn this way. And we're going to start with that front leg. So let's give it a go. Balance, 1. Make sure your knees brought up as high as you can bring it. You're stable on that supporting leg. And down. Place it down. Sink back in your stance. Check your stance and make sure you're still aligned. Front toe to roughly back heel. Now we're going to go rear leg. So when you lift the knee up, pivot on the front foot. 2. And down. When you pivot, you can pivot on the ball of your foot rather than pivoting on your heel. You're not going to pivot like this. Just pivot. When you pivot open, just come onto the ball of the foot. But we're not trying to lift up like this to go on it. As we pivot, we want to keep maximum connection to the ground. Obviously, depends on your surface. On this floor, I can pretty much keep my foot down the whole time. If you're on something, stone or something, you might have to lift up slightly. Let's go front leg again. 1. Down. 2. Down. 1. Down. 2. Down. 1. Down. 2. Down. And let's change sides. I'll turn the other way to the other side. Another thing, when you're training any of your kicks and your knees, to bear in mind is what trainers you're wearing. Because, for example, like these, they're quite tight on my ankles. So it's actually they can be a bit harder to move your foot, basically. Maneuverability of your foot, which you have to adapt to. As a martial artist, you have to adapt to what you're wearing. But training what you'd be wearing, basically, so you can get used to it and see what it feels like, because everything's always different. If you put on a different pair of trainers, they're going to feel a bit different. Some give you more maneuverability, some might be tighter, give you less, some might be heavier. So always try and train in what you'll actually be wearing as well. In martial arts, that's what you need to do, train in what you'd actually be wearing. Let's go with our front leg. 1. Down. 2. Down. 1. Down. 2. And when you're putting it down, you turn the feet back on the diagonal. Down. 1. Down. 2. Down. Let's do it one more time. 1. Down. 2. Down. Pull back, left foot to right, and push down. And relax a second. So before we start putting actual energy, always balance and stability first. You don't want to throw a kick or a knee or something and fall over after. It can leave you open. or it can make it easy for someone to knock you over. The last point with the stamp kick, when you do stamp down, turn your foot out slightly. That's so that if you hit something with because we're aiming to use the heel of our foot, if you imagine you hit someone's leg, you can easily slide off the side of it if you hit straight on. But if you turn your foot on a slight angle, then you're more likely that you're going to make a better connection than if you hit straight on, you could slide off someone's leg with your foot. So you just turn it. If you're hitting with the stamping with your right leg, you turn the foot out on this basic kick to the right slightly. Yeah? And the same with the left leg. If you're doing it with the left leg, turn the kick out to the left slightly. So thinking about that, we're going to take exactly the same. We're just going to do our rear stamp kick, so I'll just show you first. So we're going to pivot that front foot, knee up. Remember, now we bring the heel forward. 2, 3, 4. Control over the last bit, don't just drop your leg. So open up your stance. Bring your left arm and leg forward. And we're going to go 1, so just give it a go. 2, 3, 4. Turn the hip back at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and think about the height of it. It's either to the ankle, up to the knee, so no higher with the stamp. 3, 4. Let's do one more on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's change sides. Move back a bit so I've got space. So we're stamping down with the stamp kick. I'll just show you. So it comes downwards like this. It's not a snap out. It's not snapping it out. And it's not an upwards kick. It's coming, imagine lifting your knee up and then stamps down. So we're going up, bam, and we're coming down. There's literally a stamp. So it's not like other kicks where you snap or where you whip, throw it like a whip. We're actually just stamping down. And we're striking anywhere from the knee downwards. The foot, you can do these on a foot, stamp on someone's foot. But one of the things to remember actually with the stamp kick, I'll talk a bit more about it at the end actually, because let's do the other side. So let's go take our right leg forward and do our left rear stamp kick. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, make sure your toes pointed outwards. 3, 4, just slightly so you cover more surface area. 1, 2, 3, control it in this last bit, 4. Square up your stance, left foot to right, and push down. So where would you use a stomp kick? It's a bit harder to demonstrate because I haven't got no one here with me. But at any time you are close in with someone and you've cut an angle, that means you stepped off from the center and you're still facing them, you can stomp. We haven't done the front yet, but you can do either leg in either direction actually, toe out, toe in. You can use your stomp kicks to take an opponent's leg out or to take their leg down. So if you imagine you're off at an angle, because when we're stamping down with a stomp kick, you don't do it straight on to someone's leg, because if they have a leg slightly bent, this is actually a really strong structure. you're not going to do anything. If they're standing straight with their legs straight, and this is another reason we don't stand with our legs straight, then yeah, you can seriously injure someone if their joints are straight, their knee, and you hit because it's got nowhere to go. But if their leg's bent, and you do a stamp kick on that, straight on, it won't really do anything. It's a really strong structure. We actually used our stamp kicks off at an angle, so you can hit the knee outwards, either this way or this way, because it's weak that way. Like we said, the knee's and hinge joint either goes forwards or back. It doesn't go out to the sides. So you stamp off this way, or you stamp kick this way to knock their leg out, take them out. And the other place we use our stamp kicks is off kick defense. So you defend and then stamp the other leg. So that means if you're covering a kick, if someone kicked in and you covered, then you'd, a low kick, then you'd stamp down their other leg to take their balance out. So that's one of the other ways that in Wing Chun we use the stamp kicks. So there are 3 moves we're covering today in part 2 of this series. Part 3 is going to be our footwork training. And I originally was going to do 3 parts for this, but I've changed it to 4 because I think we need a bit more time for the footwork. So it's actually a 4-part series now. But I'll see you in part 3.